So, who are you with come November 5th? With the election just weeks away, it doesn't look like we'll get to see a second formal debate between Kamala and Trump. So we called both candidates on our own, and they agreed to debate here tonight. Ooh. Please welcome former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. So, Vice President Harris, I go to you first. You've been doing a media blitz this week. Do you think it's helped you with voters?
Look, Greg, I'm going to be clear. All right? I want to be clear. I grew up in a middle-class family. All right? You know, and our lawn, it was so green. And I know that, you know, that's what the Americans really resonate with. Now, look at the week that I had. Right? You know, hurricanes come and go, but call her daddy? Howard Stern? You know, he let me sit on a speaker. So, you know, when you think about the modalities of that and what the American people, what the American voter really wants to listen to, you know, I think we hit the nail on the head.
Mr. Trump, would you like to respond to that?
Sorry, Ron DeSantis is calling. He calls me back so quick. Ron, we'll call you back. But she rhymes. She does a nursery rhyme. Nobody knows what she says. One fish, two fish, red fish, dumb fish. We know she's a dumb fish, but she couldn't answer one question about what she would do differently than Biden. She could have said, I won't fall off a bike. I won't fall up the stairs. She could have said, I won't die as president. What a layup. I won't die. He could be the first president to be assassinated by time. She'll be the first president to be assassinated by stupidity. Think of that.
All right. Next question to you, Mr. Trump. What's something you would do on day one if elected again?
So I would not have men in women's sports. Could you believe we're even talking about it? The only balls on the court should be for dribbling, right? For dribbling. And I will end the racist, think of it, Greg, the racist DEI, right? The DEI, because think of it, she was the first DEI hire, the first autistic hyena in the Oval Office, and we're going to put an end to it. We're going to put an end to it.
Vice President Harris, do you want to respond to that?
Let me tell you something, and I want to be clear in case I haven't been clear in the past, all right? On day one, my administration is going to ensure free food for everyone. On day one, clean drinking water. On day one, free housing for up to 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, on day one, everything that you can possibly imagine and you need goes to all illegal migrants. Now, as for the American citizens, well, they get abortion as promised.
All right. We'll go back to you, Vice President Harris. You flip-flopped on a lot of issues. How can voters be sure you won't keep doing that if you're elected?
Look, again, I come from a middle-class family, right? My values have never changed on that, right? I've talked about my grass being green for quite some time now. All right? And as a former, you know, prosecutor and former state attorney general and, you know, Willie Brown's ex, you know, shout out to my brothers and sisters, right? So, you know, as a former prosecutor, I got to tell you, you have to look at both sides of a situation. Any good lawyer will tell you that. Trump, if you can hear me, you know, get a better lawyer.
Trump, you want to respond?
I can hear. I know I can hear because my ears are bleeding, frankly. But no, think of it. She changes more than Joe Biden's diaper, right? But it's sad. It's sad.
All right, one last question, Mr. Trump. Your opponents claim you're a threat to democracy. Care to explain how they have that all wrong?
Well, I would be a threat because if I'm president again, she will be in jail. We call that a callback from my first debate, but I'll threaten you with a good time. I'll threaten you with a good time, low gas prices, low inflation, and nobody will be eating the cats and dogs except maybe Chris Christie. Think of that.
All right. Vice President Harris, your response.
That man is a threat to the Capitol. He's a threat to our Constitution. And he's a threat to Melania. He's holding that woman hostage. You cannot change my mind, all right? And we need to save her. We need to save her for the American people. Now, he is dangerous, and if you guys want, you know, these things that he speaks of versus free food, free health care, free everything, on the taxpayer dime, and you know who to vote for. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
And she's drunk, Greg. She's drunk.
All right. Well, that was very informative. Thank you both, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, everyone. So Kamala Harris went on 60 Minutes last night and made sense for exactly zero. She spoke with Bill Whitaker, and to his credit, he asked some tough questions. But that's like giving a mailman credit for not stealing packages. True, Kamala got grilled like a house cat in Springfield, Ohio. A lot of hard questions. Of course, any question is hard for Kamala. Her IQ is room temperature at best, if that room is a walk-in freezer. But 60 Minutes was happy to help her out. Listen to this preview clip they released before the full interview aired on the subject of Israel.
It seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
What the was that? Now, she's the only presidential candidate in history who needs a translator even when speaking English. But get this, after Kamala got dragged online for that, it seems CBS helped her clean it up. Listen to what aired last night following that same question.
It seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Same question, two different answers. The White House hasn't seen a cleanup like that since they had to blast steam Biden's seat cushions. It's kind of a big deal. But maybe she knows more about the economy.
There are lots of signs that the American economy is doing very well. Better than most countries, I think. But the American people don't seem to be feeling it. Groceries are 25% higher. And people are blaming you and Joe Biden for that. Are they wrong?
We now have historic low unemployment in America among all groups of people. We now have an economy that is thriving by all macroeconomic measures.
By all macroeconomic measures, like, say, inflation, the thing that he asked about. Harris wouldn't know a macroeconomic measure if it slapped her in the face. Don't get any ideas, Doug. But our price is still too high, and does she know that?
And, to your point, prices are still too high. And I know that, and we need to deal with it, which is why part of my plan, you mentioned groceries. Part of my plan is what we must do to bring down the price of groceries.
Harris says she'll press Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, but details are yet to be defined.
Wow, her voice changed. Did you hear that too? Apparently her answer was so bad, CBS made their own correspondent answer it in a voiceover. Now, her economic plan would add $3 trillion to the federal debt. I hope he asks her how she's going to pay for that.
How are you going to pay for that?
Okay, so the other economists that have reviewed my plan versus my opponent and determined that my economic plan would strengthen America's economy, his would weaken it.
But
My plan, Bill, if you don't mind, my plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy.
Pardon me, Madam Vice President. The question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about.
So eggs cost twice as much as they did 4 years ago because the rich aren't paying enough taxes? Those two things have about as much to do with each other as Brian Kilmeade and fan mail. Wow. So what about her switching up positions like Optimus Prime doing yoga? What you got to say about that?
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus.
You changed your position on fracking, defunding the cops and the border because you traveled? Well, I'm going to Thailand next month. Maybe then I'll support men playing women's sports. When she says building consensus, she really means lying. So how about her specialty, the border?
There was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today...
Quadrupled. Great. Now you've taught her a new word. It's going to be saying it all month. Well, CBS did what they could to salvage this train wreck. The whole thing was chopped up like a line of coke on the ass of one of Hunter's escorts. Still, she didn't make any sense. But does it matter? This entire media blitz with a month left isn't meant to convince anyone. Harris is irrelevant. She could be anybody. She is anybody. The apparatus behind her, however, is hoping you follow this media trick-or-treating and not pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. Remember the Time magazine piece on the shadow campaign that got Biden into the White House? The alliance of left-wing activists, government, and media who forced changes in voting systems and laws, secured hundreds of millions in funding, recruited armies of poll workers, and pressed social media companies to suppress stories like Hunter's laptop. That's nothing compared to now. Governor Newsom just banned voter ID. Why? If not for fraud. Couple that with its massive growth in numbers of migrants in swing states since 2021, and you see that something's up. And it's far worse than the Democrats' awful candidate. I mean, she sucks. But that's a deflection from the setup right in front of us. You got to ask, why in God's name would they run something that bad if it mattered? They wouldn't, so it doesn't. What matters is that you see what's really going on, and it's another deep state shell game. And they win if you pick the candidate with an empty skull.